Well, hi everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and happy safe getaway day if you're going to be traveling later this afternoon or this evening. At least from that standpoint, the good news is that uh, most of the weather around the country today is pretty tame, with the exception of some snow squalls that are going on. And if you're running up into upstate New York, and we're going to get to that. Underneath me, or just below me, I should say, that is a live cam from Armory Square in Syracuse, where they did have some squalls earlier today. And at one point, when I pulled this up, this was in whiteout conditions. But now the belt of the line of snow showers and snow squalls, the heavy stuff, has passed to the south. It goes through very, very quickly. I mean, these things sometimes last, as little as 5 minutes. Up here at Lake Effect Country, they tend to go on longer. Plus, you don't just get the one band; you get them coming into waves. But it is, the day before Thanksgiving. You see the piles of snow on the street. Otherwise, the sidewalks were clean. Actually, when it was snowing really hard, it was completely snow covered. This is armorycam.com, and I want to thank them for letting me use the camera here on this live stream. We'll check it out a little later in case another snow squall comes in, and we can watch it. You snow lovers that probably won't be getting any snow today, you can live vicariously through the folks in Syracuse at Armory Square. So, all right, we've got some weather going on, obviously, because every day you tune in, we've got weather going on. I'm using the camera on the computer today as opposed to my other camera, which gives a much better picture, because I have to use the ports to charge my phone wirelessly, because I'm in phone hell right now. But I got to keep it charged, and the only way I can charge is to charge it wirelessly. So I have to wait till Friday to get my new phone. So there are worse things in life. So let's check out what's going on at the moment. We've got some snow squalls on the radar up in upstate New York, which is always a lot of fun to watch these snow showers and snow squalls coming in. It's the Arctic front that is really at work here, and whether those squalls survive and make it this far south down to the coast, I would like to have seen maybe a stronger shortwave trough in the upper flow, the jet stream coming down and giving some support to this. And what happens is after about 4 or 5 o'clock, at least through all the models that I looked at, the line just gradually thins out and falls apart. You can see there's actually, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 bands here of snow squalls. Each one, the lead one is the one that looks like is the strongest, or maybe it's the second one. The lead one was the strongest. It's kind of weakening a bit. There's a second band behind it, and then the third band has gotten a lot of, the area is sort of broken up, and then you've got the fourth band behind that. Eventually, you're going to wind up probably with just one band here of snow showers that'll be moving through and approaching the coast after 4 o'clock. There's a hint of the European for later on. We'll get to that as well. But let's take a look at the HRRR model, which is our ultra short range model. And when you have a model that only goes out 18 hours, it really should be the one that does the best. So we'll see how it does here. This is just make sure this is the latest run. It is. It's the 18Z run, which is great. So you can see the representation on the HRRR, perhaps a little bit less than what's showing up on the radar. And there's that lead band. This is at 3 o'clock. Should be setting up from right along easternmost part of I-90 on the Massachusetts line, then goes southwest toward maybe northwestern Sullivan County into northeast PA. And by the way, you'll notice there's a little green in there when it gets down into the Hudson Valley. So we still have temperatures here. At least the bottom part of the atmosphere is still fairly warm, and the Arctic air is going to gradually take over, clearly. But you see what happens to that line when we get to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. It just disappears. So The 3 kilometer dam today also has this thing has these snow squalls pretty much disappearing. So does the 12. We'll go to the 3 because the 3 I think would probably be a bit better with this. That's not actually a half bad representation of what's on the radar right now, but you see what happens over time. The squalls just kind of fall apart. When they hold together, in my opinion, if you have a fairly strong upper air trough with a system like this, that's usually when you wind up seeing these things hold together pretty well when they reach down to the coastline. And I've seen some blinding snow squalls over the years in situations like this when you have an Arctic front, and there's a usual sense that the squall lines tend to hold up better than modeled when it comes to these Arctic fronts. But when you look at the upper trough here, you see how you have in this case, just from this time frame, just to illustrate, there's a distinct arm that you can pick out in those darker blue shades that swings on through. Okay, if you had that look for this afternoon going by, I mean, a really good shortwave trough. That was yesterday, by the way. So if you had something like that in terms of the structure going by for this afternoon, you really don't. It's a very, very broad, bullish look to the upper flow. There's not a distinct, V shape in the flow. Somewhere you could say that there's a really distinct shortwave trough coming through, a good solid spoke of energy. You don't really have it. So that's why I'm thinking that the support may not necessarily be there for this activity to survive as it moves to the southeast. So on the surface map, and this is the latest surface map actually it's the plot of the 10 a.m. obs. So now, of course, we are at 2:36. Any moment now, we should be getting the 1 p.m. plot. They're usually about an hour and a half delayed with coming out. Here is the Arctic boundary, at least as of 10 a.m. It's much further to the east as of 1 p.m. But behind it is where all the cold air is clearly, and that's the big high that is coming down out of central Canada and heading for the eastern lakes. The core of this cold air is really going to be coming into the northeast and not so much toward the Great Lakes and plains. So this is really a shot for the east and the mid-Atlantic states when it's all said and done. And when we look at the temperatures, we actually could see the change in temperatures from we're still in the low to mid 40s along the coast here, and even upper 40s and low 50s down in southeastern PA, Washington D.C., Baltimore. But you start going up into northeast PA, you're in the mid 30s. You go a little further than that. Binghamton is 28, 27 in Syracuse, Utica 28, Rochester 28. So you're in the 20s here, and you get on the Canadian side, and you start seeing temperatures in the teens, and then low teens and single digits as you go even further to the north. So this is where our air is coming from, and we are going to see those cold temperatures here in short order. You're going to feel it soon after that Arctic front goes by and the winds start blowing strongly from the northwest with that Arctic air. Meanwhile, just to make you feel a little better in terms of the cold, it's in the mid and upper 50s across much of North Georgia, western South Carolina, western half of South Carolina, and much of North Carolina. And then you get to 60s as you get into closer to the coast in South Carolina, South Georgia, and into North Florida. And of course, you go down to South Florida, and you've got your low mid 70s to low 80s. So this cold air is going to make it down into the southeast. It's not going to really make it much further south than that because of the fact that when you look at the upper air, it just doesn't get that far south. You got the real push the real push extends into the southeast, and that's just about it. Kind of a glancing blow, so the low levels will cool off to some degree, and that'll just about do it. So with respect to the temperatures, as far as the lows are concerned, looking at readings down all in the single digits through New England, you start to get into some low teens down along the coast, mid to upper teens for my area by Thursday morning. Coastal Connecticut, uh, Long Island, New York City, Hudson Valley, New Jersey, and Eastern Pennsylvania. So you start to get into mid and upper teens, but single digits as you go upstate, and then you start seeing the 20s and 30s as you head down through Virginia, North and South Carolina. The freezing line is somewhere down in northernmost North Carolina, maybe just north of Raleigh, Durham, and then you start to see the temperatures a little bit above freezing. It's Friday morning that is going to be the colder morning for areas further to the south because it'll take that extra time for the cold air to come in. Of course, it's going to be brutal up our way too, obviously. But if Friday morning you've got the freezing line making it, almost down into Georgia, but it definitely into South Carolina, 20s in North Carolina, teens and low 20s in Virginia, and then you start to get to teens and single digits as you head into my neck of the woods, particularly in the Hudson Valley and across all of New England in the single digits, and even a few below zero numbers popping up. The high itself, the center of the high, will be moving overhead during Friday morning, so you might have enough of a breeze for at least part of the night, Thursday night into Friday morning, to hold the temperatures up somewhat. But eventually those winds will drop off. If they drop off fast and soon enough, some of these numbers could actually wind up being a bit lower. I think you're going to see, record lows for tomorrow morning and for Friday morning in many areas, especially stations that have smaller data sets. The ones that have data sets that go back to 1900 and before, it might be tough. The New York City records are pretty low. I think the record for tomorrow morning is 14, and that might be pushing it. I mean, I think that is going to be pushing it for Central Park, but it just certainly could get every bit of upper teens by morning. And then there's the wind, which of course with the wind chills here, I'll just bring up the wind chill for tomorrow morning at daybreak. And you're talking wind chills down in the single digits in many locations, especially in some of the gusts. We'll take it out. This is at 7 a.m. And I'm guessing that if we run this out a little bit more, this is for Friday. Okay, so I got the wrong time frame here. Let me just reset this. I knew that didn't look right. So let's go to the wind chills for 5, 6, 7 a.m. on Thursday. And we'll give the thing a little moment there to load. So you can see the wind chills tomorrow morning down in the low single digits to even below zero in some places. You have them. Tomorrow's the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. For those of you in my area who are going to it, I would strongly suggest you overdress and try and stay somewhere where you're protected from the wind, because it really is going to be brutal to stand outside. So, make sure you have enough, clothing wise with you, layers, the whole, I don't have to tell you, but because this is pretty wicked. For me, I would much rather, watch it on TV. So let's take a look at the weather going forward. We've been talking about this blocking pattern. And in fact, when I'm going to bring up, I forgot, I had the teleconnections up before, and I forgot to leave them up there, but the site's working okay today. So these are today's teleconnections indices, and they are very consistent with what we've been seeing for the last number of days. Very strong Pacific North America index for the next 2 weeks. It does kind of straddle down to the neutral line at some point around December 1st as energy comes into the west, but then it pops up again as we head toward December 4th and 5th. You look at the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, very strong negative numbers being generated here into next week. Through next week, blocking is going to develop and be very strong, and you still carry that NAO right through the forecast period. The East Pacific Oscillation, or the EPO, which if you get a negative reading here, and a strong negative reading is a good indicator for cold in the eastern United States, is kind of straddling the neutral line, either side of neutral for the next 2 weeks, but not strongly positive or negative in either direction. So it probably means that we'll be borderline in terms of cold from from the influence of the EPO side of the equation, but the NAO strong negative position is probably going to mean a cold influence coming in from the north and northeast, as that's where the block is, pushing air basically from Greenland into northeastern Canada and then draining it southward into the eastern part of the United States. So upper air will tell the tale here with respect to the block. It's very impressive to me to see blocking like this, and the models are all going to be relatively unstable in how they handle all of this going forward. So we are looking right now at today into tomorrow, and there's our shot of cold air. We moderate on Saturday pretty quickly with that upper ridge going by, and then you start to see a series of short waves swinging through. But at the same time, watch what happens up in Greenland with this upper high. It's just basically going to strengthen and sandwich itself in between two upper lows. One that's sitting out east of Newfoundland, very important position for it to be, close to 50 north, 50 west, or what we call the 50-50 low. That is something that is key when it comes to East Coast storms down the road, because its presence there and the block basically force everything to track underneath it. There's a natural tendency for storm systems to want to go to our west. Okay, in a normal flow, they're going to try and go up west of the Appalachians. So you need something to make it not do that. And when you have a low out at 50 and 50, this is where you're basically saying that the traffic and the block that's building up to the north, sandwiched in between. So anything that's down in the plains is going to try and go in that direction, but it's going to hit that block, and it's going to say, oh, I can't do that, so I got to go in the path of least resistance, which would be toward the East Coast and toward maybe the Mid-Atlantic coast. And that's what happens here. You see how watch that trough for early next week just kind of gets ejected eastward and offshore. And then you've got new energy, remaining energy plus new energy from this upper low that's sitting near Lake Winnipeg, a big, strong blocking high between Greenland and Labrador sitting right there. And that's going to force all the energy to the East Coast. So I think we're going to see, the seeds are here for a storm of some kind next week at some point. The details are nowhere on the table here at the moment. But in terms of seeing a look that you would describe as, I use the term dangerous. Dave Tolerus uses the term ominous. Dave Tolerus from Weather Risk. I say it's a dangerous pattern. I don't mean that we're all in danger, okay? What I mean by that is that it's a pattern where you've got the puzzle pieces and the chess pieces there for perhaps a major storm to develop someplace that would impact the eastern part of the United States. What we don't know is if those pieces are going to come together the right way. There's still a lot that has to happen, but you've got the base here. And then, of course, watch the ridge in the west pops back up, and that's also part of this equation. The strength of that ridge in the west going up into western Canada, because the more amplitude you have a stronger ridge in the west. You're likely to have a deeper trough in the east. So again, the seeds are here for something next week. I also think that because of where the block is positioned, you're going to wind up having cold air draining southward. The models do all show that to some degree or another. They don't all show it in the same magnitude. I did see the European. I thought the European actually looked pretty cold going into the latter part of next week. But we'll watch the GFS. And if there's ever a time where you have to take the longer range with a grain of salt in terms of what it does with lows and storm systems, this is the time. The important takeaway is the flavor of the upper pattern. So we arrive to Saturday. Of course, the Arctic air is going to be pulling out to the east of New Jersey. This is not a position that holds cold air into the eastern part of the United States. It might pin some cold air back down in the interior areas of North Carolina in the mountains especially, but even there it's pretty brief. And we're going to get some rain here Saturday night into Sunday morning. And there might be some heavier rains that come into Western Virginia and Western Virginia per Johnny Questland in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And then that area kind of lifts out to the northeast. You get a low that develops along the Carolina coast, but with that strengthening blocking pattern, it's getting shoved out to the east and not lifted up to the northeast. You'll notice, by the way, too, the narrowness of the area of rain. The eastern edge and the western edge, it kind of looks like a long rectangle, okay? Because that's the shape of the trough is fairly sharp and then just kind of lifts up and out. Because there's another one right behind it, and there's a low there near St. Louis by Sunday, producing snows in northwest Missouri, northeastern Kansas, and Iowa and northern Illinois. Now, there's going to be, again, the tendency for that low is going to try to go to the eastern lakes, to maybe near Detroit or toward Toronto. But we've noticed from last night's runs to today's runs, that the low, each run is a little bit further south as it begins to respond to the blockiness that is developing to the north. In fact, if you look up in northeastern New England and up into southeastern Canada, there's a high that's beginning to build there. That's the block. So as the first system lifts up, it can't get through that. The block is putting it to a halt, and it's basically weakening and falling apart. Now comes the second low that tries to go to the west, but it only gets into Ohio. Then it's going to transfer its energy to the spot of least resistance, which is going to be toward the Virginia coast. And then you wind up with a low in Chesapeake Bay Monday morning, and it shoves it pretty much straight to the east. All the while, the blocking high is now building southwestward up in New England. And you can see the impact of that because you wind up seeing some precip being indicated that changes over to snow. Whether that's real or not, I don't know. But, you know, the important thing to me is the fact that you're seeing the block in play. And then there's cold air back through the Great Lakes and Plains, all of this high pressure that's spreading out. That's going to be up there all of next week. And we're going to be dealing with energy moving across. Here's one batch toward the end of next week, which is, you know, we're looking at the 30th of November here. And then that's out. And then the next one, it tries to take up to the northern lakes. If the block holds, it ain't going there. If the block breaks down by then to some degree, then it might wind up going there. I don't know. But first things first, I think will be to deal with later next week. The European as a whole tends to handle blocks a bit better. At least that's been my experience. And here's well, let me go to the surface. I want to show you the surface map. And that's the GFS anyway, so. But let me pick up the European surface map because I did notice this. And so by the way, you're going to already see the difference here. Look at the European with the way it handles the blocking is just so different from the GFS. So there's your first, you know, first off, the European actually wants to lift this first system up toward Cape Cod for Saturday night and Sunday morning. Rather than shove the surface low to the east, it probably would mean for more a stronger round of rain Saturday night into Sunday morning for southern New England and down into New Jersey and the coastal mid-Atlantic, if that's correct. Then your next low, it actually holds that surface low a bit better, a bit longer. So it seems as if it's trying to get the block underway. It takes a little longer for the blockiness to get underway on the European. That low is gone for Tuesday. But it's after that that the European winds up with a low down in southern Kansas, northeastern Oklahoma, with another second low already starting off the Florida coast. Whoops. And then it translates that east. You have a primary in eastern Kentucky, but all through the north here, you've got all this high pressure that is built up all around it. At this stage of the game, the European probably suggests that the block is so strong that you could wind up taking a strong weather system south into more toward the Mid-Atlantic states rather than the moving it up more toward the northern Mid-Atlantic and say up into the Northeast and New England. In fact, again, it takes a little longer, but it gets it there, and then it strengthens the block quite strongly in its long range period here. Still has this blocking high sitting over Hudson Bay and troughing in the east. More energy coming into the west. The GFS, on the other hand, at this point, it's kind of starting to weaken the block a little bit. Has much more energy coming into the west. My experience has been with all of this that blocks, once they get in there, while they do go away, they usually get into a blocking pattern. It lasts maybe a week or two. Every once in a while, you'll get one that lasts for a much longer period of time, like we saw last March. That one lasted about 5 weeks. But it's also my experience that models, aside from the fact that they just don't know how to handle it, they become rather unstable. The blocks take longer to break down. Unless there's something really, really positive, strong that comes into play that breaks the overall pattern down, the blocks are going to tend to want to hang on longer. And that's my feel on this with regards to next week. So look, the bottom line is, we're still in watch mode. We're going to watch the weather models and how they evolve with this blocking pattern. Bear in mind, we could be watching this, and for it could wind up being a big nothing because of the fact that if the block is too strong, it will not impact the northern Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. But it might, in which case, then it might be an issue for areas more to the south. This is going to really hinge on how strong the block is and where everything ultimately sets up. But in the meantime, we're all going to freeze, okay? We're all going to enjoy some really just hideously cold weather. Those of you who've come on late, this is the Armory Cam from Armory Square in Syracuse, and it's live, and it's armorycam.com, and we thank them very much for letting us use it. All right, I'm coming to the board because we're going to cut this short in about a few minutes, because it's coming up on 3 o'clock Eastern time, and people need to get underway and travel. Okie dokie. Oh, Carmela Yakova, thank you so much for hitting super chat. Shalom and happy Thanksgiving to you. Be safe on your travels, wherever you may be going on this Thanksgiving holiday. And all of you, by the way, please take your time getting to wherever it is you need to go. Try not to get too wrapped up in the nonsense with road rage and all the rest of it. Get to wherever you're going, get there safe. You don't need to get there 30 seconds faster by doing, way over the speed limit. You get there in one piece, and that's the most important thing. So this way you can sit down tomorrow with your family and enjoy your holiday. And also maybe you've got family coming to you instead, and you're home doing all the cooking. I actually found that to be better. I'd rather do that because then I get to control. I had a hard, pretty much tried to a hard, fast rule. Dinner's at a certain amount of time. If you make it there late, if there's food left over, it's left over. But if it's not, too bad. We have some lovely after dinner mints. I have, being on time is a huge deal for me. Okay. And a lot of it has to do with what I've done for a living all my life. You're on a show and you're doing a weathercast, and you need to be out at a certain time, a hard time. Your show goes on at 5 o'clock. You have to be there when the red light goes on. So I have always, that's kind of my mindset. If you're supposed to be someplace at 2 o'clock, it doesn't mean 3:30, and it doesn't mean 2 o'clock Mountain Time. Okay. Because some people seem to think that a time zone descriptor is required when someone gives you a time to be someplace. So be on time, and the best compliment you can give to your to the person, the house that you're visiting, and the people that you were visiting that are serving you dinner is to enjoy their meal. Okay, that for someone who cooks a meal, a big meal, the best joy they get is when someone eats all their food and tells them how great it is. Nothing makes you feel better. You're heading up to Somers from southern New Jersey tonight. By then, most of the squalls will be done, Corey. After about 6 or 7 o'clock, they will be long gone. So you'll be okay. Just running through all of your. So Chris Sally, happy Thanksgiving to you. Seth Dominus, Chad Crawford, happy Thanksgiving. If I miss anybody, happy Thanksgiving. Daniel Valenciano, Mystery Gamer, Eric P, Sierra Sites, James NASCAR, Kakins 100, David Schwartz, Carol Kelly, Delvin. Nice to see you on here. I don't know if the Snow Squalls are going to make it to Boston. Anthony Orr, Timothy Veltman. And no, Timothy Veltman, by the way, you don't cook a turkey in a microwave, okay? Just, preheat your oven and go. It's not that difficult. And wrap it in bacon. I've been doing that for quite a while. I used to actually wrap it in prosciutto, but I wrap it in bacon. It's awesome, the flavor that it gives. It really helps to keep the turkey moist. And by the way, small tip, if you're cooking, I know you're supposed to cook the breast meat to 170. Yeah, but don't leave it in the oven cooking to 170. When it gets to about 163 or 4, 165-ish, that's when you take it out of the oven and let it sit on your counter for about 45 minutes to an hour, because your turkey will actually continue to cook while it is sitting out on your stove for another 30 or 40 minutes. So if you wait to 170 to take it out, your breast meat will be 180 by the time it's done, and then you're eating shoe leather. So if you want tender, juicy breast meat, you take it out at about 165-ish and let it sit on your counter and finish up that way. Then let the bird rest for another 30, 40 minutes before you carve it, okay? And enjoy. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody, to you and your families. I will, tomorrow I'm actually working dayside tomorrow. So I'm working from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So I actually will be able to sneak on a live stream at some point, because I will have a little bit of time on my hands. So you might see me sneak on with a live stream tomorrow around midday or early afternoon. And then after that, I'm going to take a little bit of breathing time. So let me finish it out this way. Really fast. If you haven't already, and you're on, and you've got an Android mobile device, and you're in the northern New Jersey, Long Island, New York City, Hudson Valley, Southern Connecticut area, you can download my weather app on Google Play. It is free, okay? And here it is. So I'm going to put the link up for you in case you haven't looked for it yet. It's on Google Play. And again, it's absolutely free. It's only for Android devices. The iPhone version should be out anytime. Just waiting for. I was checking my email today to see if we heard from Apple yet, and we haven't. And usually with Apple, when they're going to reject your stuff, they reject it right away. So the fact that we haven't heard from them probably means, fingers crossed, that the app will be approved and on their app store over the next couple of days. So as soon as it's in, I will let you know. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving. We will see you tomorrow. Enjoy your day. Be safe. Eat well. And take care.